What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by the two goats, Justin Fan from Underdog Fantasy and Mike Gallagher from Established Run. This is our final edition. This is it of the NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. We've had a lot of fun during the course of the year doing this. Looking ahead to the schedule next week, I've got some travel on the plate, and then we're also going to be getting late into these series where we might get one-game slates and different stuff like that. So we're going to put resources into other places. I want to thank all of you for tuning in and coming along with us for this voyage during the course of the season. It's been a lot of NBA injuries, a lot of ups and downs with health and safety protocols and whatnot. But for the most part, we did it. Those of you on the premium side will still be doing shows behind the paywall and whatnot. But this will be the last free NBA Injury Report Analysis show. To kick it off, Justin, how are you doing, my man?
Good. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It was a busy morning. MLB season, so I'm working the MLB feed as well. We got three developments this morning on top of the Joel Embiid mess that I had to deal with as well. So yeah, just catching my breath and excited to be on with you boys. It's been a wild ride of a season for sure.
Yeah, Mike, how are you on this fine Friday?
Doing good. We may get our first status cycle since 2017. When a player is out, doubtful, questionable, probable, and available. Noteworthy that Robert Covington has done it and Rajon Rondo have done it. So we'll see if Embiid can do it and join the status cycle guys here. Got it? Would you bet on a status cycle? Will they go full on out doubtful? Do you think they'll skip a probable?
He goes from out to doubtful to questionable to in. I don't think he'll hit
no probable.
Probable.
Yeah. I think he'll miss the probable side as well. Let's start there, though. Obviously, this injury reporting mimicked the Devin Booker injury reporting for Game 5, I guess it was, for New Orleans and Phoenix in round 1, where basically Shams came out and said, the player's listed as out, but is doing everything they can to play. It's going to be, the greatest return in the history of basketball, according to Shams, each and every time he tweets these, because he's getting them from agents who wanted to paint it as the prettiest picture and the most, heartwarming response that they could possibly get. So it sounds like both of you guys are on the expectation that Joel plays tonight. Do you think or have any concerns about limitations for Joel? It sounds like he's mostly, not been able to do very much while in concussion protocols. If you have any concerns, would it impact your minutes expectations for Joel tonight? I'll start with you, Justin.
Yeah, I do. I mean, he wasn't able to really deal with the lighting issue. He's had problems like looking at TV screens, his phone up until a couple of days ago. So hasn't done much on the court. So I would temper expectations for the minutes. I don't think he'll be that limited where it's going to be anything drastic like under 30 or anything, but just wouldn't expect that ceiling to really be there where he can really get up to 39, 40 in this spot. I'd be surprised. It'd be a lot to ask for Joel in this spot. He's also playing with that mask in a lot of pain. So dealing with that finger that people have seen and forgot about. It's like 3 injuries ago. But I would be shocked if he doesn't play. The line has been pretty consistent that he's going to do everything he can to play. He cleared the protocols, which is the last step for him to go through. So yeah, I mean, it's really up to him. The reports are it's going to be based on how he feels the rest of the day, how his pregame routine goes, his comfort level in the mask, and even if he's uncomfortable in the mask, he's still going to say, I'm fine, like I'm going to play, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's just my expectation for Embiid. And even if he's 80% of what he was, just a dramatic improvement, huge improvement on the defensive end for this Sixers team that has had to trot out DeAndre Jordan out there for 15 minutes a game. I tweeted this out, 149 offensive rating for the Heat when DeAndre's been on the court. And we kind of saw this in game 2. They credit to Spo. I mean, they attacked it even more. So they ran this like pick and roll, empty corner with Jimmy and Bam. And they ran it for 7 possessions. And they scored 14 points on those 7 possessions. 2 points per possession, which is pretty much the best you can ask for. So even if Joel is out there, you're not going to have these like wide open mid-range jumpers for Jimmy anymore. Joel's get better at kind of, towing the line between dropping and giving enough pressure to the ball handler. So yeah, I think this has a lot of implications on Miami's side, especially with the possible return of Kyle Lowry as well for them.
Yeah, and Mike, if you want to follow up with your thoughts on Embiid, but also get into the Lowry situation, who He's been listed as questionable along with 5 other Miami Heat players, Kayla Martin, Max Strus, PJ Tucker,
Hero,
and Gabe Vincent. Yeah. So basically everybody is questionable. What are your thoughts on Embiid and then on the Heat side of things?
Yeah, so just Embiid background, hilarious injury reporting. 10:30 a.m. They list him with the concussion and the facial fracture. Gets cleared from concussion, just listed with a facial fracture, still out. And then at 12:30, they list him doubtful with the facial fracture, and they throw the thumb injury back on there. So that was hilarious to me. Just more background too. Didn't need surgery. We saw him have orbital injury to the other eye back when Markelle Fultz bumped him in the head. That cost him some time, but he needed surgery for that one. So should be good. I pretty much echo everything fans said. I think Lowry's got a pretty good chance to play, and you can make a case, even though Spoelstra said that wins and losses isn't going to affect their availability status for Lowry. You would think that Embiid playing would make Lowry a little bit more likely to play. So and all those other questionable tags are just bogus. Like, we know that we've seen these tags pretty much for months now. The underdog champions for longest injury reports. Shout out to them. But yeah, so I think Lowry should be back maybe. Probably going to be game time for sure. But then that's going to affect. You pretty much have to figure out, somebody of Caleb, Gabe Vincent, or Oladipo is probably getting cut. They're going to have to play Dedmon now, you would think, if Embiid's in there. So I think Oladipo has worked his way in there. I think him and Hero have kind of established a good rapport off the bench. They like his on-ball defense. You need it against Maxey and Harden. So I think it'd be between Caleb and Vincent as a guy who could be like the last man out of the rotation.
Yeah, and that's where I want to get your thoughts as well, Justin. We had a big conversation with our projections group before about this, and essentially what we had seen in the second half of the season is really Miami had figured out that when they have Lowry, Butler, and Oladipo healthy, they really can't play Oladipo much because it impacts spacing and different things like that. In the first round, when they had Lowry available, Oladipo was not in the rotation. Gabe Vincent played a pretty normal amount, for him. Strus was actually cut down a decent bit as well. They were playing Duncan Robinson a little bit there too, though. So there were certainly minutes to float around. But then you look at the nature of this series, and obviously Oladipo has been an extra body to throw at Harden, which I think has been something that they've really valued for him there. He did knock down his threes last game, so the spacing and the three-point shooting issues weren't really there last game. Vincent clearly a better shooter than him. Strus clearly a better shooter than him. Kayla Martin, not really a big change there. I think Martin is the one who's most vulnerable immediately. But what do you think in terms of Oladipo's role here? Because we saw he was hurt for so much of the season. Then when he came back, it was like a 15-minute restriction or something like that. Then when these guys are out, he's been playing a lot, like a pretty decent minute. It got up to 27, 28 last game, 29 actually last game. So where do you think his minutes fall on this, and how do you think it impacts the other guards as well here?
Yeah, I think if you're Spo, you cannot not play Oladipo. I think he's earned those minutes, and especially in this spot, what he's done against Harden. I think in game 2, Harden, his average distance of the closest defender on him on average is 3.1 feet. That's the smallest margin he's seen in a game in the last 3 years. They did a phenomenal job of being close and contesting Harden, and Oladipo was a big part of that. And
if I could add really quick, just to throw a stat in here that's crazy. So uncontested shots in the last game, Maxey 14 of 22 uncontested, Harden 2 of 15. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can not play Oladipo. I think he's cemented himself in there. The spacing issues, they'll have to sort themselves out, at some point. But he's been too good to not play. And I think Kayla Martin is the most vulnerable out of the group. He was the last sub of that rotation last game. And they can play Jimmy Butler at the 4. They can play PJ Tucker at the 4 and have one of those guys on the court, most of the time. So I think we saw Strus, his role scaled back, already in game 2. That can go a little further. Gabe Vincent's very vulnerable as well. So I think out of that group, you're looking at Strus, Vincent, Caleb, Oladipo. Oladipo is the least vulnerable by a good margin, in my opinion, just given what he's shown in this series so far.
Yeah, I think we have Strus at like 25 minutes, Oladipo at 20, Vincent at like 19, Hero at 30 still, thinking the scoring punch from Hero is going to be pretty necessary. And then Kayla Martin around 8 is kind of where we've settled at for now, but have been like debating where to go on the Oladipo stuff because I think the range is pretty wide based on what we've seen with him. Do you think he's earned more of a role? Hard to know how aggressive to be on projecting that is. Given that Vincent and Strus have largely played ahead of him all season.
I came in at 22 for Oladipo initially. I'm a little more bullish on him just given what he's shown. And I think with Lowry, if he plays, they can definitely afford to scale him back and not play him as full.
Yeah, we have Lowry at 31. I wasn't sure how scaled back to go. He was playing like a 34-minute pace generally in the first playoff game. So it's all a little bit in Spo. We know he'll play hot hands, he'll play rotations, he'll make in-game adjustments. He's very, very adept at making in-game adjustments. So a little bit of a difficult situation to project, but Oladipo was a slate winner last time out, and so getting his minutes projection right today, I think will go a long way in terms of getting the Heat stuff right.
Let me toss something out here real quick. Do you think Embiid's return lessens the need for a Harden stopper? I don't know how to phrase that, but without Embiid, if you stop Harden, you basically just have Maxey and Tobias to beat you, not much else, right? Yeah. So there's more importance, I would say, to have an Oladipo stopper out there, or to have a Harden stopper out there, rather. Is that lessened maybe with Embiid?
That? So there's that effect, and there's on the offensive side, it's going to be harder to get good baskets, good looks at the basket and at the rim with Embiid out there. So those are the two factors that make me a little bit nervous about getting really aggressive on Oladipo. Is just that I think in both cases, if Embiid is his full strength and full health, in terms of minutes or close to it, I think they're going to run a lot of offense through him. And it's not going to be as much the James Harden isolation show. And then on the defensive end of the spectrum, Embiid just is going to limit a lot more shots at the rim than Paul Reed and DeAndre Jordan are. Yeah. And so it's going to require more outside shooting. And so I think it's going to put more stress on the spacing. So these are some of the concerns that I have in terms about getting really deep into Oladipo. But it's a challenge. And I think a lot of this is as much I think we could guess exactly correctly with what the Heat have mapped out, what their rotations could be, and we could miss wildly because the Heat are going to change things in game based on what they're seeing out there. But yeah, I think the guy who's the most vulnerable for sure is Kayla Martin. And then after that, I think, Strus, Vincent, and Oladipo are somewhat equally vulnerable. Strus has not played very well since he dinged up the hamstring, and I don't know if that's an issue that's impacting him. But for a guy who's purely a jump shooter, if the jump shot's not there, there's not really a lot of reason to play him. And then we had concerns about Hero getting hunted so much early in the series, but Hero's played so well offensively that I think his role is pretty stable regardless.
Yeah, I would say the Hero Bam, Jimmy Bam pick and roll gets a lot less tasty out there with Joel instead of DeAndre Jordan or Paul Reed. Or Paul Reed's been really bad defensively too, by the way. So if Hero isn't out there just balling like he has been, maybe he gets cut a little. I don't know. We'll see. Like you said, there's so much fluidity in this. I can see them being down by 8 at halftime because they're playing Depot so much. They're struggling for spacing that they may be scaling back in the second half. Maybe they look great in the first half and Oladipo plays a lot. So there's just a lot of ways this can go.
Yeah.
One thing I'll add too, if I could add really quick. So Tobias has been guarded by Jimmy Butler. We talked about this on one of the shows you and I did together when these guys start coming back, because Lowry guards fours a lot in his career. So the question is, and especially after, Vincent just got wrecked by Maxey, I think it's possible you put Jimmy on Maxey and then Lowry on Tobias and kind of defend that way. That way you could switch the actions a little bit better. Just something to kind of think about. So a little kind of ahead of it, but that's something I'm going to watch later.
Yeah, I could see that happening as well. One of the best ways to slow down guys who are super, super quick is put length on them. Because you're creating obstacles for them to have to get around. That you saw that way, way, way back when with Derrick Rose's Bulls when LeBron would just lock up Derrick Rose. Just like basically anytime the fourth quarter came around and those Bulls Heat series back in the day were close, they just throw LeBron and Derrick and the Bulls' entire offense would just become dysfunctional. Obviously, Maxey not having the same role as Derrick, but in terms of like quick burst and acceleration, same type of player, same type of defensive approach potentially. Andrew M asking, and Duncan definitely dead. I think Duncan is pretty much dead this series. Yeah. Look, Miami has a lot of depth. They have a lot of depth and a lot of ways to play. I think there might be other series that might be a little bit better fits where they can go zone and different things like that, where they can play Duncan. But I don't think this one is
let me kind of close this out here and wrap up. So we have Lowry coming back potentially for Miami, and Embiid's defense coming back for them as well. And then we have Embiid coming back for the Sixers likely. Let's go team by team. So if we're looking at Miami, we have Lowry coming back, cutting back on some of these backcourt guys' minutes. Bam, not as effective in this spot against Joel versus DeAndre. Is Jimmy the guy on Miami that you feel the best about, just generally from a production standpoint still?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think him and Bam were pretty similar the first 2 games, but I think it legs down for Bam. The other thing I'll note, just as you're talking through that I also thought of, with them being on the floor, it might also make it so that they can play Tybal a little bit more, which might, I don't think it'll have a huge impact on Jimmy, but it would be, another defensive body to throw it in. But just hard to play Tybal out there when you're lacking the offense already. So he might be able to play a little bit more. You might see those Korkmaz minutes go way more aggressively, just because they feel like they have enough offense to withstand having Tybal out there.
Yeah, he looked a lot better. Jimmy did in the second game. His role wasn't even like full on Jimmy's status, and he still had a really good game. He was ultra efficient on the little driving he did do. So I'd expect him to lean more into that. So I'm definitely with you guys.
So going to Philly then, with Embiid trending towards playing, we've seen Tobias be the biggest beneficiary in usage and production in those full games of the playoffs that Embiid has missed, plus 5.5, plus 5.4% usage rate differential for Tobias. Max, he's seen a plus 5% usage rate differential in those full games too. Obviously, James Harden has been struggling big time. With Embiid back there, who is the Sixer that you feel the best about today?
Max.
I think best about like relative to Embiid is still likely to score the most fantasy points if he's playing anything close to his normal minutes. I think all these guys are going to look like relatively poor values. I think the guy whose value in a DFS standpoint holds the best is probably Danny Green.
Oh boy.
I think Danny Green actually gets like better looks, right? Like gets higher quality looks. His usage rate actually increases when Embiid's on the floor compared to when Embiid's off the floor. But I mean, look, with Danny, it's just whether he's going to hit threes or not. He was 1 for 9 last game. I think there'll be potentially better looks if Embiid is drawing the attention that he normally does. But I think it's more a sign of like, I don't think the value changes for Danny very much. And I think it changes a lot for everybody else. And everybody else gets taken down between Maxey, Harden, Harris, and Embiid. I would say based on the way that they've produced of late, I think Harden probably has hurt the least because he's just been so bad. But I think limiting the defensive attention on him might actually create a little bit more efficiency.
Yeah, I'll add though the Embiid pick and rolls are way better with Harden. The Sixers scored 1.15 points per 100 sessions when they're running an offense around the Maxey one. So for whatever that's worth, you could make a case that just Maxey's just playing better, so they're probably about the same to me. But yeah, man, Maxey is like clearly better than Harden right now, based on the last 3 or 4 game sample we've seen, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I just think if Embiid's playing, you're probably not playing a lot of Sixers in DFS. The way it goes, he just eats up so much.
This is just what I'm getting at is just the spot. It's the game where there's not going to be a lot of value because these guys coming back and Lowry and Embiid just kind of muddles things up for everybody, right? So I'm not really interested in anybody from either side.
And then the only other thing there too is I played the over in game 2, expecting like just natural shooting regression from the two teams. It was listed at 210.5. It opened at I bet over 208.5 in game 2. I actually hadn't checked in to see if the line had moved much on the total, but I actually would think that if all these guys are back, usually when you're getting players back, you usually think like, oh, that's a better situation for the over when you're getting like all-star players back. But I actually think the game plays slower, and he's a much better defender. I was interested in attacking the over when I thought Embiid was maybe out. Now I'm kind of looking in the other direction.
Totally agree. And I think it got like before game 1, before the injury for Embiid came out, it was like teetering around 207.5. It got bet down the total. So I am with you. I think just from both. It's going to be a grind out game. Simply just having Embiid in there instead of DeAndre Jordan and Paul Reed just dramatically improves the Sixers defense.
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable to think that Embiid might take on similar amounts of usage as we've seen in the playoffs and stuff, which is a dip down from the regular season, but might lose a little bit of efficiency, right? Like playing with the mask, playing with the finger injury, like playing with like light distortion, like. So yeah, I think I'm going to be betting the under in this game.
So one last injury, I don't think this really impacts that much. Tory Craig got added as doubtful to the injury report.
Yep.
Monty's essentially been playing a 9-man rotation for most of the playoffs with Payne, Cam Johnson, JaVale, and Shamet off the bench. We saw 2 minutes of Ish Wainwright randomly in the first half of game 2. But yeah, Craig barely been playing. He saw, he was a DNP CD in the first half of last game, and then played 1 minute in the first half of game 1. So don't really think this changes much at all. What do you guys think?
I think it's like Mike and I both think that this is very slightly better for JaVale McGee. Just in terms of there was so much talk after game 1 about Dallas going smaller. We didn't get to see any of it because Dorian Finney-Smith got into such early foul trouble that they were just trying to scrape minutes by, right? Like that, the whole rhythm of that game got thrown off by the officiating in the first half. And so our thought process was like, man, if they end up going really, really small, Ayton's not going to get played off the floor. But could JaVale's minutes go away and those get into Crowder at center minutes and they get more into Tory Craig and Cam Johnson and those guys? And so just having one less option to deploy in those situations, I think makes it so that, I thought the floor on JaVale was 3 to 6 minutes if it went really bad. Now I feel like the floor is a little bit better to 8 to 10. So I think it's very slightly a good thing for JaVale, other than in Cam Johnson. But other than that, I really don't think it moves the needle very much at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. Feels like we got this rotation figured out. Very noteworthy. They did cut down that. We saw both halves, the second half of the first game, they went full bench. So that got cut back, and Chris Paul starting both the second and the fourth quarters was ticketed for big minutes after Monty cut him down. Honestly, based on Chris Paul's presser, I think he told Monty don't do that again.
I think look, Monty's now 2 times during the season talked about how he wants to limit Chris Paul or whatnot, and then the next 2 games immediately played him 38 plus or paces for 40. So I don't think Monty can be trusted in these situations, and also just doesn't make sense in the playoffs. This is it. I think that basically Chris Paul's assertion is let me blow these teams out, and then I'll go sit the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, Monty Williams, a snub and our least believable coach of the year.
Oh man, he's not even close, man. I don't think he's that. Nick all day.
But yeah, no other real big injury stuff to monitor there. I think really it's just a matter of whether we see these teams able to stay out of foul trouble. For Dallas, we haven't seen Brunson play out of foul trouble. Dorian Finney-Smith last game played into foul trouble, and that allowed Davis Bertans to play a lot. There was some fluky stuff in last game's rotations just based on the foul trouble. Same with Phoenix with Ayton getting into a ton of foul trouble early. So I don't think there's much to talk about there on the injury side of things. But certainly,
there is an update that we do have to note that's very important. Dwight Powell spotted with a starter jersey at shoot around. So that lineup has been wrecked, though.
R.I.P. Gallagher's theory of Dinwiddie starting.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they may start that in the second half, though. I think you could see stuff like that, but I continue to contend that these teams want their bigs in there early to absorb fouls while the refs are just going whistle happy in the first quarter. In these games, it's just been we've seen it with Xavier Tillman. It's just been so much.
It was
whistle happiness.
It was 29 fouls and a technical, I think, in the first half of last game.
Just crazy. Yeah. Outlandish.
Last thing I'll say for Jalen Brunson, Mike Conley isn't walking through that door. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson wishes that the playoffs ended after round 1.
I was saying he's losing money, man.
The bag got very big. And yeah, Gallagher's pulling up the producer here. The biggest injury news on the slate is no Scott Foster.
Yeah. There's a little line movement overnight. I was talking to Rob about it. We were like, does this mean somebody got the inside scoop that Scott Foster's got a call for this game? Apparently not.
He's probably on tomorrow then, right?
Yeah.
Has to be coming for game 4, I would assume, but we'll see. All right.
Oh yeah, he'll be. Yeah, do they save him for game 4? I guess that's.
Yeah,
probably waiting for that result.
For for the TV.
Yeah, because they may not. He could skip a day tomorrow and then be on for Sunday for sure.
That's my guess. All right, we've covered it all from an injury perspective. Want to thank all of you for joining us on this journey throughout the course of the season. We'll still be providing all of our premium content behind the paywall over at Established Run, 5:00 Eastern tonight, with myself and Mike Gallagher covering this 2-game slate from a DFS perspective, a strategy perspective. We will not have shows over the weekend, obviously, so we'll be back from a premium side on Monday after Friday's show. But no more of the Established Run NBA injury report analysis shows. We had a ton of fun delivering these to you guys throughout the course of the year. I want to thank Justin Fan in Underdog Fantasy for giving his time to us during the course of the season and his expertise, which is so valuable. Make sure to follow everything with Underdog over there. They are just throwing huge prize pools out on the best ball side that is going to take up my entire summer just drafting and live drafting and best ball all summer long. Yeah. So thanks to Justin, thanks to Mike, thanks to you all for watching. Enjoy the games tonight. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the premium side behind the paywall tonight at 5:00 Eastern. Take care, everybody.